This is Wholesaling Houses Elite, the no fluff and BS podcast with tips and tricks to help you become an elite wholesaler. Our guest will spill the beans on what it takes to be the best.
This podcast is brought to you by Lead Gen Pros, making it incredibly easy for the average real estate investor and business owner to get more leads. They work with a variety of companies who specialize in real estate investing and who are looking for a systemized way to increase their lead flow and grow their business. If that sounds like you, check out theleadgenpros.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a new podcast. And every single week I bring on amazing guests. And this time, this guest, I'm not going to lie, is selfishly for me. So welcome Mark and Tamiel from Think MultiFamily. How are you guys doing? How have you been?
We have been awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really appreciate it, Max.
So you guys are multifamily specialists. And is it more of you're just multifamily specialists all together? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. We're focused strictly on multifamily. We invest in some other asset classes passively, but as far as active and education, it's all around multifamily. And it's typically larger, somewhat larger, 100 plus unit type properties.
So the big ones. So the stuff I want to buy probably doesn't classify yet, huh?
If you're going to buy something smaller, I'd still recommend 5 or more units because the financing is better if you go 5 or higher.
We started small multifamily 25 years ago, kind of aging ourselves there. And we've
can't buy properties at 5 years old. I already.
You're talking to me, I'm sure not.
Right. We've just learned that it's definitely better to go bigger, faster with a team. And we didn't have the resources that people have nowadays with podcasts and online training and conferences. And people are just at a better position.
Point.
Yeah, I say it's a much better advantage point to be at starting today than it was like 20, 25 years ago. But let's back up a little bit. How did you guys even get into real estate investing at all?
Yeah, I'll start. So I grew up with one of 7 kids, have an identical twin brother, and we were always like, man, we're going to do something different than everyone else. But we had no idea what. And but then we kind of got caught in the normal, went to college. And while I was a senior in college, my brother and I said, let's buy some real estate. And we didn't have anyone prompting us or anything. We saved up a little bit of money and we went out and started buying and looking at small properties, like 2 to 4 units. Got an offer on a deal, accepted, and then my dad talked me out of it and felt really bad about that. We were already under contract and everything and pulled out because my dad didn't want us to go forward. He wasn't an investor or anything, but just spooked me. And then we ended up saying, okay, well, let's not bring dad with us anymore on any of these property tours, which we didn't. And about 2 months later, we got another deal, a huge value add deal, and bought that deal. Told my dad after we closed it, so he couldn't talk us out of it. And started buying 2 and 4 units, and then got corporate world type stuff, accounting and IT, and continued to buy smaller properties up until 2013.
So
and Tami got married like
right after your first duplex.
So February, yeah. So within 5 months after of us acquiring that property, Tamiel and I got married.
So that makes you that you just financially secure. So I'm ready to get married now, huh?
We were definitely not financially secure, which that was a bigger issue because our loans were recourse loans, which I really didn't like. We had personal liability, and anything we wanted done to the properties, we would have to try to do ourselves, which were not overly handy. We have an 8-hour toilet story. It took us 8 hours to put a toilet in.
A whole other podcast just by itself.
that was not good. And so we didn't have the finances. We were working both IT, my brother and I were come back at literally 9, 10 o'clock at night. We lived in Michigan at the time, shoveling snow and driveways. And
that was when you were even in town because he traveled a lot.
Yeah. So this is not great. Not everything we thought it was going to be.
No.
So multifamily is like hot right now in the investor world. A lot of people are speaking about it. Why is it? Well, first of all, when somebody's just getting started in real estate investing, why are we so leaning towards single family? Why do you think that we just jump towards single family immediately?
I think because it seems the most logical. People just in our history understand like going to school, getting a job, buying a house. It's just so ingrained with us. That's like the next logical step. I don't think people maybe have the education to understand the work it's going to take or the time it's going to take to buy one, move to the next, and then scale up to maybe a 10 or a 20, then 100. That's just people's logical mindset. And those who teach that, that's their logical mindset because they haven't learned that it's actually easier to go bigger, faster. But it all comes down to understanding what you're doing, having the right team in place to walk you through all the potential obstacles that trying to go at it alone you would hit, right? So people like Mark and I, and there are other maybe experienced investors that you can kind of just pull information from, learn from their failures or people's horror stories, so you don't have to repeat the same thing.
Yeah, it's being scared, right? It's being scared. I mean, at 22 or whatever, I would have freaked out if someone told me, hey, why don't you go buy a 100-unit property? I'd be like, what are you talking about, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't know what syndication was at the time. We were raising money from other people and things like that or anything.
You would just think it's the rich who are buying those big properties. You had no idea that the average person could actually tackle it.
Look, I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable here. I mean, it wasn't until maybe 9 months ago that I even really started exploring the idea of buying anything multifamily. What are some of the big misconceptions with acquiring a multifamily property that you hear all the time?
Getting started, you mean, or just
Yeah, getting started.
I think some of it is more that, hey, it's someone usually has a story of somebody that bought it, uncle, aunt, whoever, and had a problem with it. And that those stories exist. There's no question about it. If you're in the business long enough, you're going to have issues. And then you have the other side of it. A lot of educators out there that say, oh, it's so easy and, nothing ever goes wrong. Well, you know what? That's not true. Things go wrong.
Yeah.
And if you buy a property and something goes wrong for you, you're like, I must be like the bad guy, right? I mean, my property's not doing well. Well, it happens. And it really is people not educating them in a way and sharing those, no one wants to say, hey, I had a bad experience, and nobody's usually proud of that, right? But you need to step out there and share those horror stories. Like at our event we're doing, we're going to have a panel with horror stories. And not because people are sitting there saying they're proud about it, but they want to share it. I had a guy on a panel ask me, you want to share a real huge success story or a failure? I said, well, I think people get more out of the failure. So I shared a very, hard story to share.
And I think that's part of like what I talk about as well too is like my failures. And I think, failures they're not terrible. I mean, I know a lot of people are afraid to fail in general, I think, but it usually makes you better instantly. And I think you guys can probably attest to that as well too. Let's talk about maybe what was after you got your mindset set that you were in the multifamily game. What was probably one of your first biggest acquires that you've ever had in that market there, or not market, but in multifamily altogether?
It was a 64 unit in Dallas area.
Now, how did you structure that? Were you already months into the game? Were you years owning properties, or did you have to level up and learn to how to acquire a 64 unit?
I don't think we had to learn as much about how to acquire because we had been buying smaller properties and finance background, stuff like that. And not necessarily that's required, but it helped me a little bit more on underwriting deals and trying to structure them. The biggest hurdle for both Tamiel and myself was we need to go raise $1 million for this deal. And that freaked me out.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But you got it done.
We got it done. And, but growing up, we never talked about money, never knew how much my dad made. I only asked my dad, did I really remember twice my entire life for money? I said, I probably asked him a second time because I forgot the way the first time went.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to go out and ask people for money. You have to get a mindset saying, I'm actually providing an opportunity.
Correct.
People don't even know about it. When we talk to people like, I didn't know you could invest in a deal like that versus a stock market or, whatever it might be. So we're providing opportunities. It's not for everybody. Some people will never do it. And some people are like, oh my gosh, I never knew I could do this. I'm very interested in let's hear about what you have to say.
So you talk about hurdles. Let's talk about, you got somebody that has a couple rental properties themselves, maybe 4, 5, 6, and they've been hearing a lot of chatter lately about multifamily. What is a hurdle somebody's starting that they are going to face pretty much every single time?
Broker, there's no credibility, no track record whatsoever. We have people all the time, we educate. I talk to people, whatever, 20 people a week, and like, oh, I've been and listening to podcasts and reading books, and that's great. You should do all those things, but I'm not getting deals. Well, we've sold deals before, and I would never sell, a 100+ unit deal to somebody as their first deal that they're buying. I wouldn't do it. And brokers, you could buy 100 single family homes, and you're going to learn a lot. The steps aren't that different. These guys act like it's so much different. It's not. There are more complications with multifamily for sure, but the steps are almost identical with single family. So let's not make it seem like it's bigger than it is. But you're going to run into that whole thing where the broker's like, well, how many deals have you done? None. And that instantly is, you're not getting the deal.
Well, and the single family doesn't really translate into commercial experience.
Yeah.
Credibility wise, experiences are great. There's no question. And you can leverage a lot of that, what you're doing on smaller properties. But from a credibility standpoint, you'll get zero credibility from brokers, unfortunately.
Got it. So what are some of the strategies? So you guys teach people how to get into the multifamily investing world, right? And maybe, so what is somebody, when they come to you, say me, because I'm looking to get into that world, and I come to you and say, hey, look, Mark, I'm looking to learn more about multifamily investing or syndicating deals or something. What are some of the first steps that you would obviously tell me to go make?
Yeah, my first one would be more trying to figure out where you're good already at something. So we have, a half a dozen ways you can get involved in a deal as a partner, right? Whether it's finding deals or raising money or putting earnest money down or signing the loan or different aspects. So just talking to somebody, if I talk to an engineer, an IT guy, typically they're going to be good at analyzing deals. Generally. If I talk to a marketing sales guy, they're generally more geared towards raising capital. It's not to mean you can't do all these things, but why try to perfect, a half a dozen things when you're already born a certain way? You are. There's some things you like, things you don't like, and there's no reason in my mind to spend a bunch of time doing things you don't like. So become the expert in some area. If you can raise capital, raise capital. It's valuable. If you can find deals, do that. So really trying to find out where you're already naturally born and then what you've actually done before. And then don't try to get someone to do all aspects of it initially. It's too overwhelming for people.
Well, and how much time you have to invest in doing your duties. If you have 1 hour a week, do you have 0 hours? Do you have 10 hours a week? That alone will tell you where you're going to fit into this family syndication model of getting involved in apartment investing quickly.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. Talking about like maybe off-market deals, is it common to find off-market apartment complex deals? And if it is, maybe tell me about a story where you found something yourself off-market, and if it is common.
Yeah, so off-market, I would say, is a little bit relative. So I would look at it this way. You're going directly to sellers for 100+ unit properties can be done, but we've never done it. And we'll spend a ton of time, energy trying to build a relationship with, a few sellers. And then they're a broker's going to come in, woo them and say, I'll list your property for X number. And like, well, I'm going to do that instead. So,
and we actually have a story on that. So we have a realtor who went to an apartment community in the Dallas area trying to get a deal off market. She brought it to us. By the time she spent hours and hours with this owner, a commercial broker came in and then signed the contract, and now they were listing the property. Yeah. So all that work she was trying to do, she just lost out on, because in general, the people who own 100 units or more, a general statement, are educated sellers, and they know that it's a hot market, and they want to work with a commercial broker who knows how to get top dollar or how to sell it quickly so they don't have to bother with it anymore.
Yeah. We do get off market though. So it's more through brokers, and people are like, well, how's it off market if you're going through a broker? Well, it's not listed.
Yeah.
They're not email blasting it out to, 1,000 people. They don't even typically have what's called like an offering memorandum, which is like a kind of a document put together about the property, and it's very pretty looking. They might not even do that. But we have some brokers we've done business with. We've closed, a dozen deals, for example, with. Well, we're one of the first people they call. There might be 2 or 3 other people they call. In some cases, versus trying to compete against 100 people, I'd rather compete against 3 people. And we've had opportunities where brokers have brought us a deal and only us, and we know the brokers, so they're not, it's a small world, and say, we're going to give you a week to look at this deal. Let us know if you want it. And if you do, great. If you don't, we're going to go on to the next potential buyer.
Yeah. So when you find a deal and you're interested in it, you run the numbers and you say, man, this looks good. How do you go about raising the money for that deal? I mean, it sounds 100 units you're paying, I guess in a lot of markets, you're paying a couple $1 million for these properties, $1 million or more. How do you go about in your head wrapping that around of raising that type of money?
Yeah. So typically it's going to be, depending on the market, at least 50,000 a door, a unit, right? So $5 million purchase price. I was really scared at first, and we still get nervous. We've raised a lot of money on a lot of deals, but you kind of get to the point where we built up a group of other people too that want to raise money and become part of our general partnership team, because there's some legal aspects around that too. But want to raise money for us on deals. And that's not their sole responsibility, but they have access to that. So getting out there, going to events. I know you do an event, meeting people. And then getting on social media, which I know you're a huge social media guy, but people start looking at you and saying, okay, hey, this guy is like legit. I see him everywhere. And follow up and follow through is key, because if you go to an event and you spend the weekend there and, whatever, a few $1,000s for everything, and you get, say, 10 contacts, really good contacts, you don't follow up with those contacts with people. It happens all the time. So the follow-up afterwards, and then just, hey, let's jump on a call together, maybe find out what you're up to, what I'm up to.
Yeah.
Building that. So getting out there and then giving something of value. So giving away free content. And even if you're brand new to it, chances are you've learned enough where you can come up with some sort of 10-step checklist or whatever. End of the day, you need people's email addresses. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram is useless without capturing somebody's email address. So you need to give them something of value to where they're going to be like, hey, I read Max's 3 steps. I want to see his other 7 steps, and I'm willing to give him my email address to see. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So you guys are doing an event coming soon. What can people expect at events, especially multifamily? Because I'm pushing for more people to get involved with multifamily, because it is single families are a slow grind, but to each his own, right? Everybody has their own formula of how they want to get to their own destination. But what do people should expect going to an event like yours?
So an event like ours is great. Our events, in our opinion, stands out a little bit more from others like ours, because we really push content and not just topics. We really want people to be able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together so they can learn what their next step is once they've left our seminar. Lots of networking, of course. We work in extra networking time so that people can enjoy the content, the seminar, and not feel like they're missing out on any of the networking. When you go to a networking event or a conference like ours, you need to go with a specific purpose. Are you looking to learn? That could be your purpose, and yes, take notes so that you have your next steps ready to go. Or are you looking to network and just say, if I meet 2 people where I've built a real relationship with, where I can continue that relationship after the conference, then it's a win. What we oftentimes see is some people come to these conferences and they attend every one, and they bring a stack of business cards, and they're leaving with a stack of business cards because they're just speed dating. They don't really care about the people, the investors, the content. They're just there to get what they need to get out of the event and walk away.
There's a guy actually from last weekend. There was an event in Dallas, and people from our group were there, and he had his name on front. It was a shirt that was made with his name on it. Hi, I'm so-and-so. And then back it said, you need my business card. It's just not, that's not a way to network. It's not. So networking is key, but the other one, like Tamiel mentioned, is really the content. And we'll have maybe a dozen speakers there coming in, different contents, panels. And we're structuring this one a little bit differently, where we have people that are just like 2 steps ahead of somebody. So, if we stick somebody up there that's done, 5,000 units, which, is quite a bit, people are like, I can't even relate to that guy. Max done 5,000 units. I mean, I'm at 0. I can't relate. So we're actually this time incorporating a little bit more, where someone's done, a deal for 100 units, or someone's done 2 deals, so people can relate to them better. And they're like, hey, I can do what Max is doing. He just did a deal. It's 100 units, but it's more that relatability that we, in fairness, before we probably put more people up there that were doing bigger deals.
We also are focusing a lot more on the money raising aspect for this particular conference in September, just because we see that seems to be people's number one fear or concern right now is, how do they raise money? You've got to start somewhere. So let's learn the basics. Let's learn the legal ways to raise money. Let's learn how some other successful syndicators are raising money or networking with high net worth individuals. There might be a different way that you relate to somebody who's an engineer versus somebody who's like a mega millionaire just looking to preserve their wealth, right?
Yeah.
You need to find out where they are and how to communicate with them differently. So, and what I also find in events, every event has its own culture. And that culture, that feel that you get when you walk into an event, usually stems from the leadership of the person putting on that event. So if culture and community is important to you, we've created our events to be specifically geared to be inviting, so that when people walk in the door, they will feel the difference, that they have stepped into a Think MultiFamily event because it's inclusive. We want you to feel like family. We are very family values focused. Even some of our students who live local to us, if we have a date night scheduled, we're like, hey, let's call up the crew and see if they want to join us for our date night, because it's just, we want to be family with our people. I think life is more about not just about how much money and how fast and how much success we can look like we have. Because if you get to the top and you don't have friends, you don't have some kind of real purpose in life, which is not money, you're going to feel empty at that end, right? And none of us know exactly when that end's going to be. It could be a week from now, 5 years from now, or maybe 50 years from now. But you've got to start living life now with a purpose, and that again isn't chasing the dollar, because that dollar stick is always going to be moving.
It's a goalpost. It's always moving. I agree with that 100%, and I also echo that going to events with the purpose to network, or whatever your purpose is, but you need to have a couple agendas out there set so that you know exactly, what your purpose is when you're going to these events. And I know, because I put on an event and it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of patience. So I commend you guys for putting on events, because a lot of people don't understand, you don't really have to do these things. You've learned how to invest in the multifamily. You and Tami, Mark and Tami, you guys can just go off and, live in your big house somewhere and just enjoy multifamily investing. But it's that inner feeling to teach, that inner feeling to pass on what you've learned. I think that a lot of people, don't understand sometimes that it is a burden, but it is, especially because you're actively doing deals. So you have a whole nother after 7 p.m. where you're planning these events and putting things together to make sure the curriculum is right, make sure the right speakers are there. You spend a lot of time on the agenda for the event, and putting on a single day event, a multi-event, is a lot of work. So I commend you too for taking that step to do it, because in this world that we're in now, everybody's putting on events. Some people putting them on for right reasons, some people putting them on for wrong reasons. But I know your guys' event's going to be a success. And I know a lot of people, heck, I might even show up. When is it going to be, and how can people find more information about it?
Sure. The event is September 7th and 8th in Dallas, and they can find out more information about it by going to thinkmultifamily.com/fire summit.
I'll definitely leave that link below in the show notes. But I want to talk about some more deals because I'm truly, honestly, in like, I want to know. So I could speak for hours about this just to pick your brain. I know you have people when they look at some deals. What are some red flags when you see a deal come across your desk, right? A broker brings you a deal. Hey, this is an off-market property. Here's the numbers. What are some instant red flags you see that makes you say, wait, this ain't right?
Yeah, location for one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it's located. Crime, you can find out crime reports pretty easily on a property. Those are kind of at the gut, if you want to say. And then you have physical characteristics. Does it have flat roofs? Okay, well, it might be okay, but that's not ideal. Does it have what's called a chiller, where we have a property, it's 208 units, and it has a chiller system, which means it's heated and cooled from one central place. So if it goes down, it's down for all 208 units, and it was down for 3 weeks in July in Dallas.
In Texas? No way.
3 years ago, I remember 2 years ago, I guess. Not ideal. So those physical characteristics. And then you have the other aspects of it where the financial, and some brokers are really good at providing, kind of a legitimate pro forma expectations what the property could perform at, and some of them are horrible at it. So knowing, no matter what, whether you're going to go buy your own property or invest passively in a deal, you need at a minimum to understand some basics. And we do a 2-day deal analysis class too. You just walk through deals for 2 whole days.
Wow.
That's it. But looking at certain rules of thumb, like, okay, well, what's the expense ratio typically going to be? How much should payroll cost? How much would be, it's called economic vacancy. So people that don't live there, people don't pay. And some brokers, that's usually at least 10%. Some brokers will have like at 5 or 6%. It's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it is today for this month, but you can't use that information and project out into 2-3 years from now and assume it's going to be correct, because you're likely going to be wrong.
Yeah.
So lots of rules of thumb. I mean, quickly looking at pproperty, physical characteristics, location, demographics, and then what's around it. If it's the, kind of a building that's not great, but the building, other properties around it are good, that's great. But going into an area saying, hey, all the properties in this area are junk, but I'm going to buy this one property and totally change it. I'm going to put security cameras and fence, and now you better buy the whole block or 2 block or 3 block, whatever it is, because one property in a bad area is still in a bad area. You need to have more mass to change it.
Well, and is the property in a landlord-friendly city? So think about, is the state landlord-friendly, but sometimes the state in general isn't, but a particular city in that state might be. So you really need to look where that property is located to see how.
So no apartment buildings in LA, in Los Angeles.
LA, rent, I mean, we look at, where it's located, supply, is new supply coming on. Tamiel mentioned rent control, all those aspects, job growth, population growth. And you don't have to have every one of these things going for you to make the property, work. But the more you do, the better it is, for sure.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Man, I could just keep going. I was going to ask you about, buying distressed apartments, but you're like, look, a bad apartment is a bad apartment in what area? Do you ever buy, I guess apartments are graded by A, B, C, D. Is that correct?
It's tricky, the distressed apartment. So yes, you have a lot more potential to make more money when you bring them all back online. But say you have 100 units and maybe 70 of them are vacant, maybe all of them are vacant. Where are you going to get the loan from? Because a regular bank isn't going to loan. So then Mark could probably talk about scenarios where you have to get a bridge loan or a hard money loan to get you started, but interest rates and everything are higher for that. So you need to have a plan how to bring everything back online quickly.
Yeah, you need to understand, so we've done and we continue to do a lot of big value add. We have one right now we're doing. It's a very small purchase price. We're putting $16,000 a unit, which may or may not sound like a lot to certain people, but that's actually a pretty big amount to put in per unit.
That's to fix it up?
Yes.
Oh, that's quite a bit.
It's a lot. Generally speaking, a more stabilized property that's kind of, decent, you're going to put maybe, 4,000 or 5,000 to kind of spruce it up. This is 16,000. So, the bridge loans we've done, I don't even know, 8 or 9 over the last year. I don't have an issue with them, but if you're going to get into that business, if you want to say, you better understand the way bridge loans work, because it's completely different than all the other conventional loans out there.
Mm-hmm.
Much more complicated.
So earlier you talked about a recourse and a non-recourse loan. Can you explain what that is and how people get, or how you qualify for one or the other?
Sure. So typically, if it's 1 to 4 units, it's recourse, meaning if something went wrong on the property, that the bank can come after you personally, your personal assets, and try to collect.
Mm-hmm.
5 and above is where you have the option to have non-recourse. And we have, several hundred million literally in non-recourse loans, which means the lender can't come after you for you personally, unless you do something wrong, like you're fraudulent or things like that. So they should come after you. You did something wrong. But it's non-recourse, which means you don't have personal liability on it. So, this whole idea of, that's why I mentioned earlier, if you can do 5 units or above, you at least have the option. If you want to go Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, generally speaking, they want you to have at least $1 million loan. It can go down to 750, but just in your head, think that you have to have a loan amount of $1 million or more. Then you can get into like kind of a long-term Fannie Mac or Freddie loan, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, long-term, usually $1 million and above. And it's generally non-recourse. All ours are, but you probably have to have somebody sign with you on the loan if it's your first loan to get that non-recourse.
Got it. Now I'm painting a picture here in my head, and I'm saying I've never heard of a non-recourse loan on a single family property. So that kind of paints the picture, because I'm always thinking from the bank's perspective. They never want to lose. So if they're going to give you a non-recourse loan, they must be pretty confident in multifamily investing altogether and the idea of apartment complexes and commercial properties as far as living. So that kind of makes me think that if the bank's okay with a non-recourse loan, it's probably a secure investment for most people than going single family to single family.
Right. The property is a business and should stand on its own. People on a regular basis will contact us. Hey, I'm looking to do a deal. I have good credit. And it's like, it's not saying irrelevant, but it's so a non-issue for me doing it. Look at the business. How is the business performing today?
Yeah.
And then, depending on what type of loan you get, they will project out how it can perform in the future. In some cases, they don't. They'll say we're going to base it based on how it is today. But it's an excellent point you bring up, because compared to other asset classes too, you might get 60% leverage. We're getting 75, 80% loans on these, plus rehab money rolled into the loan, plus sometimes soft costs of 3% rolled into the loan. So the lender's the biggest investor in any deal we have.
Wow.
And if they're looking at it like, hey, I'm willing to give all this money up, there's a reason for it.
That's awesome. Tami, answer this question. If I can't make it to this September event, which I'm personally speaking for me, do you have some other things that you offer, such as maybe like one-on-one or group sessions or some online stuff?
Yes, we do. We actually have just an online training material option, as well as one-on-one coaching, which gives you one-on-one calls, unlimited. We have our group calls as well with our other one-on-one students, so you can get to meet some of them and start building relationships and potentially even partner with them. And then we also meet 3 times a year, where we go more in-depth training with just that one-on-one coaching group. We also, with that group in particular, we take a real estate investing cruise every summer.
Oh, wow.
And it's just time to really develop those relationships, and everybody brings their family and their kids. So we do have an online only training, and then we do have our one-on-one / group training, because it really is encompassing both.
I love that. I love that a lot. So I think for myself, I'm going to definitely try to make it to September. If I can't, I'm going to be joining some online something, because a lot of people don't know I still educate myself every single day in this business. I don't care if it's multifamily, single family, what type of investors, how to raise money. I think it's important that everybody in this business grows every single day, as I'm sure you guys learn every day as well too.
Yeah, someone that says they're not, or someone thinks, we have people post, oh, I already know everything. Oh, good for you. Well, I don't, but good for you. You think you know everything already,
Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, I guess, just like marketing, the world, the way everything works is constantly changing and growing and advancing. And if you're not keeping up with it, you're actually falling behind. So you've
100%.
got to grow and change with everything.
So Mark and Tami, do you have any last words to say to leave them with, encouragement or whatever you want to say to the audience here?
Yeah, I would say, stop dreaming. Yeah, I tell people, I had a little Facebook thing saying, if you're not going to take action, just stop dreaming because, it's never going to happen. So if you're going to take action, big dreams, and partner with somebody else that's done it, because podcast books are great, all that stuff. You can learn everything you want. I use the analogy of, a fighter, right? Somebody can read a book, how to fight for 2 years. Somebody go in the ring for 2 years, and pretty confident I know what's going to happen when they get in the ring together.
Yeah, I do too.
No one's ever gone through a deal and said, that was so much easier and less complicated than I thought it was going to be. You're like, wow. And these guys have been listening to podcasts, reading books, events for, years. It's just something different about getting that experience. So find someone that's done it before, made some mistakes, and can share those with you.
And
Absolutely.
I would say that if you are questioning whether this is something you can do, because maybe your personality is more timid and you don't know how to network, you don't know how to talk to investors. I was in that same place the very first real estate conference I ever attended. I was afraid during the breaks because I didn't know what they were expecting me to already know. And I didn't want them to know I was just a stay-at-home mom at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people just want to get to know you. I'm totally different now than I was 3 years ago. You can totally do this. You can grow into the person you want to be. Just don't be afraid to take that first step.
I love it. Mark and Tami, it's been great. And Tami, can you give me one more time where they can find information about the event or just in general?
Absolutely. So you can find us at thinkmultifamily.com/fire summit. You can also reach out to me personally at Tami, Tami, at thinkmultifamily.com.
And I'm Mark, MARK, at thinkmultifamily.com.
There you have it. I appreciate both of you guys coming on. And if anybody's sitting here wondering if they should get into multifamily, I say stop thinking about it, get into it, at least educate yourself so that if you do run across an opportunity, you can strike because you have some type of education in that field versus just passing it on to somebody else. So I appreciate Mark and Tami for coming on to the podcast. And if you're listening so far, please take the time, give us a 5-star rating, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. And I appreciate every single one of you guys again. Appreciate it, Mark. Appreciate it, Tami.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wholesaling Houses Elite podcast with Maxwell. Make sure to tune in next week to see what elite wholesaler we'll have in the hot seat.